Hello again, everyone. It's Ariel Helwani here on this Wednesday afternoon, and what an honor it is to be joined for the first time in a long time by a man who needs no introduction. He is one of the greatest pro wrestling broadcasters of all time. He's a WWE Hall of Famer. He's a current AEW broadcaster. He's a man who has been around the world of combat sports for decades now. He's good old JR, my good friend Jim Ross, who, again, I haven't talked to in a few years now, so it's great to catch up with him again. First off, Jim, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure, Aaron. I'm so proud of what you're accomplishing. And, we were kidding earlier, I first met you. You were that young, full of P&V Cub reporter running for a soundbite and getting this interview and that interview. So you're done great. I'm proud of you.
Well, that means a lot to me, especially coming from you. So thank you. And I hope that you're in good health now. Is everything okay with you?
I'm good. As far as I'm knocking on wood as we speak. I'm in Jacksonville, where tonight we'll have a live AEW show at 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 Central. But I've been here since May the 4th, and I'm staying until May 29th. Our pay-per-view is this Saturday. So then next week we have 2 days of television, and then I'll go home. I just didn't want to be on too many airplanes. This way I had one airplane ride, Oklahoma City to Atlanta. Tony Schiavone picked me up in Atlanta and drove me to Jacksonville because he was driving down anyway. So I want to be on 2 planes in this whole trip. So I feel good about that, at least that game plan.
Yeah. And you felt comfortable with the plane and being around other people and all that stuff?
Yeah, I wore my mask, and
yeah,
they had a lot of social distancing on the plane. Not only just the load limits are down, but they spread people out. I thought that was good. So yeah, I felt okay with it. I'm not staying in a hotel here in Jacksonville. I'm staying at an Airbnb. Unfortunately, it's on the beach, which is really terrible. But seriously, I'm not at the hotel. Every precaution that I can take, I'm taking. And
Good.
when I go to the arena later today, I'll be in my mask. I'll go straight to the doctor's tent, because you can't go to the doctor's tent before you let the workers, the production people, or anybody into the compound.
Okay.
So everybody's going to have a wristband that they pass their test, or you don't go through the gate.
Wow. Okay. And I want to talk about that. But first, the reason why we connected very recently was there I am watching the UFC on Saturday night in Jacksonville, empty arena, the ViStar Veteran Memorial Arena. And I see a tweet coming through my little Twitter scroll thing there. And there you are, Jim Ross, wearing a UFC mask, sitting in the front. And I thought, this wasn't open to anyone outside of a UFC employee, essential worker, and of course the fighters in their camp. And there you are with the best seat in the house. So can you explain to me how you ended up at this UFC event on Saturday?
Well, they say it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Yes.
And Tony Khan and Dana White are friends, and they communicate about various things. I'm understanding from time to time. So and Tony was staying at the Hyatt Hotel, and that's where everybody in the UFC was staying. So I think that it was just a matter of, hey, you want to come to the show Saturday night? Sure, I'd love to. Can I bring a couple of guys? Okay, no problem. So they had chairs set up for us on the floor, but not around anybody. The only guy sitting near me was a security guy, just to make sure, I guess I didn't do a run-in and try to get somebody in a Kimura. And I'd be screaming, double wrist lock, damn it, it's a double wrist lock. So, but it was good. And their game, so Tony Khan put it together. Okay. And Dana was very gracious about his time and taking care of us. It was a lot of fun. I had a good time.
So who are you there with?
Tony Khan and Jon Moxley.
Wow.
Moxley's a big time. He's our champion, and he's a big time MMA fan, and so is Tony, and so am I.
Right.
So it was one of those Saturday nights, guys' night out. We had a couple of beers, had dinner, went over to the fights, and spent about 45 minutes or an hour with Dana before the shows, before the main card, maybe 45 minutes, and it was great. They treat us like kings, and I really appreciate it. And we talked about common issues. This coronavirus is a common issue for everybody.
Right. To the best of your knowledge, looking around, were you guys the only quote unquote fans in attendance?
Well, as far as I know, we were, Ariel, because I don't know that some of the people that were sitting in the stands behind us, for example, and that was the only little small group. I want to say they were some family members.
Okay.
But they had their wristbands on, and they had been cleared. They just didn't show up and walk in. The thing about our deal is that Dana knew that I'd already undergone 2 or 3 tests. So, and for myself, and Moxley the same. not sure for Tony. So we were good, and so we were still isolated. But I didn't see anybody else there that I would consider a fan. I
Right.
think there were a few isolated family members, or that's what it appeared to me to look like.
You've been to many UFC MMA events. You've called MMA events, of course, with my good friend and partner Chael Sonnen back in the day. Um, but watching one, high level UFC event, big stakes, heavyweights involved in an empty arena like that, what was that experience like?
Surreal. It's totally surreal. Uh, Interesting things pop up that are new. For example, you can hear the coaches with their instructions. I think I was kidding Tony Khan that probably somebody's going to come up with a code, because if you say use your right, that's pretty demonstrative.
Right.
Here comes the right, look out. So I think that's interesting. But the coaching is really intriguing. You could hear the announcers talking,
Wow.
and I really felt for those guys, because one of the great things about it that you need in announcing is to gain eye contact with your partner. For two of you doing a game or a fight or a wrestling match or whatever, you want eye contact so you can see if somebody's they're ready to go, or they got something they need to say. Are you going to bring them the ball, so you're going to give them the eye that, hey, here it comes? These guys are sitting way far apart, three of them. I want to get over and say hello to Michael Bisping, but I didn't get a chance to. But they were sitting way apart. So there's no way that every now and then you just see guys looking down this way to see if they had eye contact with their partner. So I really admired the job they did, considering the geography.
Right.
But it was a fun night. It was a good night. And the other thing about being in an empty arena, the smashing of leather on skin is very prominent. And and I don't care who you are. If you got a pulse, you're going to go, ooh, oh, wow, whatever. You're going to react. So it was a fun night. The UFC was totally class, and they got a game plan. Man, that was the third night of 8 in
Right.
8 days, third night, right? So they really had this Corona thing, I thought, Ariel, down to a science.
I was wondering if you sympathize with the broadcasters as well, because you've called so many events, so many matches, so many fights. And, as a broadcaster, and obviously when you're calling pro wrestling, it's a little different because, the wrestlers are, in on it, so to speak. But, those broadcasters, they have to critique what the fighters are doing. And if they find out, which they did on night one, that the broadcasters can hear what they're saying, and some of them, to their credit, use the advice of a Daniel
Yeah,
Cormier and change their game plan. That's got to be a little tough as a broadcaster, right? Now you maybe like start to think twice about what you're saying.
it may give you pause,
Right.
but you really got to steer the course and do your job. And so if you have bona fide critiques, and DC always has bona fide critiques. He's a bright guy, and a guy I consider a friend. And of course, Chael never heard a sentence he didn't want to utter. He's amazing. But yeah, I think that those guys they understand now they have a little different role. What they say is not only good for the viewer, hopefully, but it's going to be heard by the camp, the fighters, the coaches, and more specifically, the fighters. So it's a little bit different onus on you, but you still got to steer the course. So I kind of think that's pretty cool. Hey, if DC gave you some advice, and the guy would say, he's right, we need to do this.
Right.
I think that's it's another interesting element of the empty arena concept.
If you were the UFC, would you move them away from cage side?
I don't think so. No, I noticed on Raw on Monday night they put their announcers now where we are. We broadcast like tonight at Van Daly's place in Jacksonville, closed set, and it's an amphitheater. So the announcers are up on the stage, and the ring is down in the pit, so to speak, on the floor.
Okay.
So we're way away from the action. And in the beginning, I didn't like it because I was stubborn and old school. I want to be at ringside. I want to feel the sweat. I want to see, or I want to hear, see, feel, and I can translate that a little bit better. But that wasn't what the hand was dealt, and so we moved away from it. And now it's the smartest thing we've done, because the ringside is clean. We're not subjected to all that sweat and what have you. So but I'd leave them there. You got to feel, Ariel. You got to feel. You got to hear, and it's a very audible business. And some of those shots, man, with those, what are the 4-ounce gloves?
Yes, sir.
4-ounce gloves and epidermis. Guess who wins? 4-ounce gloves every single darn time.
I'm fascinated by this, and I'm really curious to get your take on it. I don't feel like the UFC product has suffered one iota as a result of having no fans in attendance. The things you just mentioned, hearing the punches, the kicks, the corners, the commentators, they've really got it down to a science where they darken the crowd, right? So the seats, you
Right.
don't notice that they're empty, and it just has a raw feeling. It's fun. I really don't feel like we've lost anything as a viewer or fan by watching these fights. However, and I'm curious to hear what you have to say about it, in pro wrestling, I do feel like the product suffers without having the fans in attendance. Why do you feel like MMA, you could almost make a case that it actually is more interesting without the fans, yet in pro wrestling, it seems like it's less interesting?
Well, that's a great question. I don't know if it's just precedent. Pro wrestling's been around a lot longer than organized MMA. Since, which I'm not trying to start a debate, but
Sure.
nonetheless, I don't know. That's a great question. I don't know if it's just the presentation or it's the theatrics doesn't translate without an audience, because it's hard to tell jokes and give punchlines and nobody's there to laugh.
Mm.
So sometimes it's very difficult in a theatrical presentation to translate that without audience reaction. That's why we put guys on our roster that have all been cleared from the corona as far as testing. That's why they'll be at ringside both tonight and Saturday night when we're on pay-per-view. It gives a little bit of ambiance, a little something. I was like I said, I was watching a little bit of Raw on Monday night. One of the few people that watched it, but nonetheless, I thought that the arena looks so sterile.
Mm.
I don't know why they don't have people. They have people that they tested. There's people that have cleared the test that are in the building that could be there. And maybe it's only the ego side of not wanting to copy AEW. Could never do that, for goodness sakes. But now you see what their announcers are on Raw, and I think that's a smart move. But it does take a little bit of adjusting.
And for you, other than the placement, do you feel like you have to do more, speak louder, speak more? I don't know, anything different as far as your approach to calling it in an empty arena?
The only thing I could point out, Ariel, is that I ride my levels a little. I ride my volume on my headset a little heavier,
Okay.
and it gives me the audible sound. Then gives me a little bit more sense of urgency.
Okay.
And I also hear myself with not good diction sometimes. When I get real fatigued because of the Bell's palsy, sometimes I slur my words, which on social media always means that JR's drunk. So whatever. But I'd ride the levels a little higher. But I'm a monitor guy. I don't need to see what's going on in empty stands or anywhere else. I'm going to watch the monitor because that's what you're going to see as a viewer.
Mm.
And I need to put a narrative to that video that you're seeing. I got to add my thing to it to help it, hopefully. So no, I'm good with this thing. The monitor's my friend, and my levels are my friend, and I get my own little zone, and I do my thing as best I can. So, and all and the guys certainly on this week, you know how this stuff goes. The last show on primetime free TV before a pay-per-view is normally hotter than hell, because you want to encourage the audience. Hey, that's good stuff. I enjoyed that. I'm going to watch their pay-per-view this weekend. So tonight's going to be hot, and I'm going to be ready. I'll ride those levels up a little bit, and we'll get after it. It'll be fun.
One thing that I wonder, if this is creating a difference between the two products and the viewing experiences in wrestling, I'm hearing a lot more speaking between the competitors. In MMA, you hear the corner speaking, so they're kind of acting like the de facto crowd, if you will. But I'm
Mhm.
hearing a lot of talking where I feel like sometimes the competitors, the athletes, the pro wrestlers are overcompensating for the lack of noise, and I feel like that makes it a little bit awkward. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't disagree with you as well. Everything should be organic and real within the confines of what you're presenting, if that makes any sense. In other words, we know that pro wrestling is a theatrical, fictional-based presentation with excellent athletes who do their own stunts. They do it many, many times a year, usually have in the past. But man, I don't know. I think that it's got to be real and organic. But the other thing too is that most of these wrestlers don't wear mouthpieces.
Hmm.
So if they were talking with a mouthpiece, it might be it might not be legible, so to speak. But yeah, I can see what you're saying there. Overcompensation is an issue at times because we got such a young roster, Ariel. That a lot of them are making their first pass
Mm.
through a national stage, and they're still learning how to react. And that's what's beautiful about our brand is that they're young, they're enthusiastic, and there's something to be said. You're doing it right now. You're living your dream. And man, when we can do that, when I can do that at 68, and I go call a pro wrestling match, which is what brought me to the dance. Hey, would I like to be doing some MMA? Of course, it'll be fun. I like to do Jags football. I got a shirt. But seriously, any of those things are a blast. But you and I are both lucky at different stages of our career that we're doing what we love. And I hope that when you're 68, you're still doing what you love. Why not?
Yeah.
I hope so.
I appreciate that very much. Just want to go back to your meeting with Dana White. That wasn't your first time meeting him, right? Or
No,
having like an extended conversation with him?
I had one more little brief meeting with him, casual. Uh, I went to visit Mark Ratner, my old buddy,
Oh
for
yeah.
years and years and years. I love him. I missed him in Jacksonville, but he didn't fly. He didn't come down. I think Mark's mid-70s.
Yeah.
So, he's too damn valuable to get. That's what Tony Khan said when I was home 8 weeks. You're too valuable to the team for you to get sick. I'd never forgive myself. And then things started getting more. We had more information. We knew some things we should do and we should not do that we didn't know 8 weeks ago, type thing. But we had that was not the first meeting. It was the longest meeting.
Okay.
We sat in this little office, in a locker room area, and talked about a variety of things. We laughed, we told stories. We do what guys do. Everybody's got a Brock Lesnar story.
Right.
Everybody's got a whatever story, and so CM Punk story. So, and Dana loves. He's a guy. He likes to talk football. He likes to talk. He's a guy's guy. So, but I was amazed how his demeanor's calm. I watched him at ringside as the fights were going on. He wasn't on the headsets. He wasn't telling the announcers what to say. He wasn't overproducing. He was observing the fights. And him sitting at ringside, I got to believe, it would be for me, buddy, a great motivator from a fighter, and my boss who can control my whole career is sitting right there within arm's length, so to speak. He's a great administrator. He really is. In his world, he's perfect for it, in my estimation.
Just curious, he has long been compared to a man that you know very well, Vince McMahon. Do you get those comparisons, or do you think it's just a sort of lazy, easy one because they're two promoters who run, combat sports organizations, if you will? Now that you've had a little more time to talk with him, and I know you've known him from afar for a very long time, do you get the comparisons between the two?
When McMahon walks into a room, oftentimes he sucks the air out of it. And he doesn't because he likes it. He can and he likes it. Dana can, and I'm sure he does this in some deals, but just on a casual one-on-one basis, they're nothing alike.
Hmm.
Dana's a lot more straightforward. Vince is very guarded. And I think that comes from, decades and generations of his family in the wrestling business. All those old promoters are guarded. The kayfabe, you can't tell anybody what's going on and all this other stuff. So Vince is more guarded. Dana's very open. As you know, you talked to him a zillion times. To me, now he might not be to you for a story you're chasing. He's not ready to tell you, but he's pretty damn open with stuff, and that's what I found him to be. He's a good dude, man. He's the kind of guy that all of us fans would dig having a beer with. He's a funny guy, well-rounded, loves football, so I love that. He loves MMA, obviously, and I do too. So it was great. Tony Khan, I told Tony when we were go back to the hotel, I said, I know you have a memory that's like the Rain Man. Tony, don't miss nothing, man. I said, you got to spend about 45 minutes or an hour with one of the great entrepreneurs in American sports. No matter what anybody says about his demeanor or what they perceive Dana to be, look what he and others have built. It's a major league, man. So I said, it's just his spirit is good to experience. So that's kind of how I looked at it. And Tony agreed. We got a lot of access with him, and I think maybe being there on the last night after it was kind of everything had been done, everything was in place. So I had a great time, and I can't thank those guys enough for the hospitality.
By the way, who do you consider to be the greatest promoter of all time?
P.T. Barnum.
I had a feeling you would say P.T. Barnum.
He started it all.
For those that don't know who that is, why?
Well, he was the creator of the Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus, and they traveled. They were the first major traveling show. And when you're traveling by train with elephants and lions and tigers, oh my, you're pretty sharp. And the other thing about those guys, the advanced men were brilliant because they would go in and there was no TV or radio in the early part, so they used posters. And there's a little fun fact that kind of relates back to a little bit of wrestling. Their colors were always on their posters, and the old P.T. Barnum posters were yellow and red. Who do you know in wrestling that made yellow and red famous?
Wow.
And that
Is
was
that
back.
wow, I didn't know that.
Hulk Hogan
Interesting.
wore yellow and red, and the color pattern, allegedly, he draws your eyes to it. There was a method behind the madness. It just wasn't happenstance yellow and red. But I think
Wow.
P.T. Barnum was the guy because he started it all. The touring, the traveling. You're not just traveling with the egocentric performers, you're traveling with animals. And, they say never work with kids or animals. And so there you are.
And curious, what is the state of your relationship with Vince McMahon these days?
Uh, I think it's okay. We don't talk as much, obviously, as we used to. I remember his birthday. I remember the holidays. He remembers my birthday, things like that. I'll get a text, or he will get a text. I congratulate him on WrestleMania for what they did. That Undertaker AJ Styles match I thought was really, really good, and it was a production masterpiece. So I thank him. Congratulate him on that. But it's a competitive world, and my book came out, Under the Black Hat, and there's a lot of Vince in that book. I don't know if you had a chance to check it out, but it's the number one selling sports biography on Amazon. JRSBBQ.com will get you a signed copy and free shipping. But I talk about Vince, and I think people thought I was going to write a hatchet job. The old low road deal. Poor me. If I had got my push, damn it. But McMahon cut me short. Come on. Look in the mirror. The thing about being great at what you do, if you're great enough, nothing can keep you from being successful. Now, you could say, well, what about the virus? Or about, of course, natural causes. But if you're great and you're healthy and you're working your ass off, there's nothing that can keep you from being successful. I big cream rises to the top. I said that to the boys a lot. You didn't do a damn thing differently this week than you did a year ago. You haven't added to your game. Your body looks the same. You're loose. You're not in great shape. It's a looks business. I'm not encouraging you to go take shortcuts with steroids and stuff. But bottom line is, what have you done as an entrepreneur, as a self-employed person, to make your game better? I see nothing. And sometimes that's what it is. But of course, the promoters always get blamed. It's the same thing in MMA, UFC, same stuff. I'm sure you hear it. Well, Dana didn't like me. So that's what screwed me up. Dana didn't like me. So I was the best fighter in the roster. Okay. All right. If you were, guess what? Your ass would have been in the main events on paper. You was making a lot of money if you were the best. They're not going to turn money down because they don't like you. That's silly.
So no resentment, right? I mean, the fact that you didn't get
No.
to end.
Hey, look, Ariel, I've had a blessed career. A single child, only child, I should say. I was single too. Only child on a 160-acre little farm in eastern Oklahoma. Grew up a wrestling fanatic. Got to watch 1 hour a week, and I lived my dream. I'm living my dream. And along the way, McMahon gave me the opportunity to be an EVP in his company, to put together talent rosters that I still believe, and biasly, was the best ever. Look at the millionaires, look at the famous guys, look at the Hall of Famers from my signing classes, our signing classes. So I can't be angry at him. And then I got there when the company went public, and he was very kind to me and several others on the stock options, the stock grants. I was a made man before, not too long after the stock thing, because of how generous he was. He had the vest, but that's nothing unusual in that corporate world. So I really don't know, other than some, I think he liked teasing me. I think he liked ribbing me because I sold it too good. I should have no sold some of that stuff. But man, I just I can't be angry at him, even though I don't agree with all those things philosophically on how you write wrestling. I think he's trying too hard to be Walt Disney and trying too hard to be entertainment. To me, hard hitting physicality, i.e., MMA, is entertaining. I like to see physicality. I like to see the same process, the same principle in pro wrestling. He could do it, and for years it worked. So that's what we're trying to get back to with AEW. But it's a process, man, because these kids, a lot of 22, 23-year-old kids that we have now, they've grown up watching guys. You're good if you can do a flip. You're good if you can do something over the top rope and have guys catch you. I've never figured out why this covey of men standing outside the ring are always there to catch somebody, even though that person is jumping over the top rope may be their adversary. You're still going to break his fall for it. It's illogical. It's totally illogical. So, but Biss was he was good to me, and financially, to my family. It's just he and I had different philosophies at times, but he allowed me to take over the talent roster. I was hiring people he didn't even know. He didn't have a clue who they were. You think he knew who Edge and Christian were? Not a clue. He knew Kurt Angle because Kurt was an Olympic gold medalist. But we missed on Kurt the first time. The second time around, I got a chance to interact with him more, and we hired him. And so, you should. I wrote in my book Under the Black Hat about Vince's what he thought when he saw Brock Lesnar for the first time. We started recruiting Brock Lesnar when he was a junior in college at Minnesota. So we weren't going to let him go. When Vince saw him, he had the damnedest man crush in like 10 seconds on Earth. He said, "God damn, he looks like a Viking." I said, "Oh God, that's don't look like a Viking. That might not work." So we had great times together over some real tough times. And this Owen Hart thing that aired last night was one of them, certainly. And but my relationship with them, I got to get past my ego, Ariel, on the creative. Did I like kissing his ass on the skit? No. Did I like Dr. Heine? No. But I got paid real well for all that stuff. And it helped me provide a good lifestyle for my family and my kids. I put two wives and now 2 granddaughters through college. And I could do it. I helped improve their life because of how Vince helped improve mine. So I'm not bitter at him at all. I say this all the time. Since Jan got killed in March of 2017, I've kind of come to this realization that I don't have room in my carry-on for any negativity. And I totally believe that. I leave my house to come to work. I'm happy. I'm going somewhere. I got a destination. I'm going to be around people that like me, that respect me. And then I'm going to work my butt off to make sure that all that like and respect is warranted.
I appreciate the honest answer very much. You mentioned your late wife, Jan, who passed away tragically in March of 2017. And I'm wondering if that didn't happen, if you guys were still together, do you think you'd still be working, or do you think that you are working because you're home alone?
Well, that's a good question. I kind of think that being home alone and working they go hand in hand here. I'm an alpha male. I'm a people person. I like to think. And but if the opportunity to work for Tony Khan and AEW came along, she would have encouraged it because she knew that's what made me the happiest outside of being with her and being married to her. That my work was extremely important to me, and it's been a deal where I've gone through this evolution of where I know now, and I didn't want to admit it then, that guys like me really aren't supposed to make it on television. I got a Southern accent. I got nice cheeks. I can't smile because of Bell's palsy. I'm a little bit hard to produce because I like to sing my own music. I don't need you writing my music for me. If I can't do a good job, Ariel, then get somebody else. Go to the pen. You take your lefty or your righty and bring them in and close the game. That never happened. Well, it happened kind of, but I guess in Vince's world. But I wasn't supposed to make it. So I've overcome. I keep fighting for respect. I keep fighting for credibility. tonight on TV, I'll work as hard as I could possibly work. I don't call nothing in. It's just not another Wednesday night of TV for me. Every Wednesday night's a destination for my work and my career. But I think if she was here, she would be loving this Airbnb I'm in, and the beach is across the street. And because I would have been happy, and she loved to see me happy, and she was the best, man, my best friend. It's just hard to do that. And of course, Shad Gaspard, we found out today that, golly, I mean, what a nice guy, real family man, great father, probably one of the most positive guys I've ever been around on a day-to-day basis.
Really?
Yeah, they're real good, real great attitude of life. He had big dreams outside of wrestling involving creative, filmmaking, screenwriting. He's been working on a project for a long time, but he's one of the nicest guys that I helped, that we had on our roster. You know, one of my guys. You know, and it's just when you lose anybody like that, you know, it's like I mentioned the Owen thing briefly. There's not a week goes by that I don't think of Owen Hart. It's not like, oh yeah, Owen. It's not just the anniversary of that accident. It's every week. Something reminds me of him. Sometimes I see somebody play practical jokes on TV. I think of Owen. And I see guys doing aerial things, high flying stuff. I think of Owen. He did it as good or not better than anybody out there, and it meant something because he knew when to incorporate it within his little game plan. It just wasn't a filler to get me this here to here. He had a reason for everything. So last night was hard to watch, quite frankly. And again, it was just such a so unfortunate. Shad Gaspard and Owen have a lot in common. They're two guys, Ariel, that I can't recall off the top of my head anybody ever saying in the wrestling business, which is wrought with jealousy and insecurities, that nobody said a bad thing about. They loved the guy. And that Owen was that way, and of course, and Shad was to a lesser degree because he wasn't wrestling royalty like one of the Harts. And I say that in all respect, not in a sarcasm. But both those guys, it was a tough day. This has been a tough week in that regard. Two guys reliving Owen's deal, and then the Shad situation. Died a hero, saved his son, but hopefully the wrestling community can gather them together and help the family financially, you know, kind of find some solidarity.
I wanted to ask you about not only the Owen episode, which aired last night on Vice, but that whole Dark Side of the Ring second season, because I thought of you and I sympathized with you while watching last night, also while watching the Chris Benoit episodes, because there aren't any WWE executives, representatives interviewed in these pieces. And you were in a very high position back then during these two tragedies. And it almost feels like you have to answer questions that maybe shouldn't be asked of you. Do you feel like you are put, and I appreciate your voice there because, you know, and I appreciate Jim Cornette being there as well, but, you know, you were very high up in the company during these times, and yet there's no one else that, you know, there's no McMahon family, etc. Do you feel like you are having to answer questions in these interviews for the documentaries that maybe shouldn't be asked of you, or that you shouldn't be asked to answer these questions?
Sometimes I'm put in a spot, Ariel, because I am that surrogate.
Right.
And it's not a great role. And I'm also, because I'm not, after 26 years in WWE, now if I make a critique, oh, JR's bitter. Oh my God, he's really bitter. I'm not bitter, you know, I'm good. But I think like the one is, would you have stopped the show?
Yeah.
Well, that's easy to determine now. That happened in 1999. There was no precedent for the damn thing. So I don't know what I would have done that night. I'm not saying I ought to put the stop button. But once, how you heard Martha put it, the crime scene, all these things involved, I thought, yeah, I think I would have stopped it. But on that night, because you're slick with it, man. You're right in the face. And how do you react? And there's no precedent. We haven't been through this before. We haven't had a drill on when this happened. So, but all these years later, I say, sure, we probably should have stopped the show for all the right reasons. But on that night, the last thing I was thinking about was the show stopping as a broadcaster and setting up mere feet from where Owen fell was just getting through the night. And I could, this is the honest truth, man. I cannot tell you the main event on that show right now, as you and I talking, Ariel, to save my soul. I can't remember. I've seen it because of the interviews. I know Jeff Jarrett was doing something after that match with Deborah. But other than that, I couldn't tell you what else was on the card. Everything, I blocked everything out. And I don't want to relive it, but I relived the hell out of it last night. And not a good night's sleep for me. But nonetheless, I guess I was supposed to be there. Now I saw some unfair criticism of Kevin Dunn. Here's the deal. All this, you can only imagine the chaos going on backstage, right? You can only imagine. And so Kevin was trying to get all his stuff together. Where are we going next? We're going to continue, or we're not going to continue. We're going to stay on the schedule. And so he says, JR, we're going to have to come back for an on-camera, and you need to give an update on Owen. Well, Kevin thought that Vince or somebody else had given me the update on my headset. I said, Kevin, I don't know the update. Nobody said anything. He said, JR, Owen's dead, and you're back in 10. So I got 10 seconds to figure out what I want to say. But Kevin didn't say it in a district. He got a lot of flack. He was even trending on Twitter at some rank. But people misunderstood that. He said what he had to say. We're not talking about dissertations here. You know the stuff. I'm back in 10 seconds. I don't need you in my ear for a whole 10 seconds. Tell me what you need. Count me in. Let me go. And that's what we did on that deal. So but Kevin was just doing his job, and he did a good job that night too in all this chaos. Because again, everything was very, very, unpredictable, unrehearsed. So I don't know what to tell you, man. But I'm asking a lot of questions that I can't answer. Why didn't Vince stop the show? Well, maybe you ought to ask Vince.
Right.
How about that? Oh, he's not available. Oh, so I get it.
Right.
So your answer is, I don't know what was going on in his mind. All I know is that we're all scrambling. We still had hope at the very beginning that Owen could make it. He could survive. That's what we were all focused on: the injury, the fall, and can he survive? We thought he could, but we were hopeful, obviously. And then that's when I got the word from Kevin that that he'd passed, and you had to go do your thing, man. And but it was a chilling day, the one I don't ever want to relive, Ariel. I mean, I was glad I got to say something about it. I love the show, the show, The Dark Side. I thought last night was great. The access to Owen with family. I was very excited to find out his son's now an attorney. I thought that was really cool. Good looking kid, and if Owen was still alive, that there had been some nudging, maybe, I want to try the wrestling business, we might want to give it a shot. But the young man and the young lady, Athena's beautiful. She's a journalist. They've all become more educated. I'd say Martha has done an amazing job of restructuring her family unit after the tragedy of losing her husband. I was very impressed with her, quite frankly.
It was beautiful to see his children. I had never seen them before, certainly not at this age, and it was really cool to see that his daughter is a journalist, or an aspiring journalist, since that's an industry that I care deeply about. I want to give you a compliment. I hate to give it to you because of the circumstances, but I really think till this day that what you did that night, May of 1999, was the most impressive thing that I've seen a broadcaster do since Walter Cronkite announced that JFK had been assassinated. And I honestly think that in many respects, what you did was a lot tougher because you were sitting right there and you watched it with your own two eyes and you knew him personally as a friend and a colleague. I can't believe that you did it with that kind of grace and class. So you don't need to hear it from me. It means nothing, but and I know you're still torn up about it, but I just wanted to commend you on that, because reliving it last night, blown away by how you were able to do that.
Thanks, Ariel. Well, look, I guess the good Lord had my back, because I don't even remember what I said. I never watched that show. I watched the pay-per-view writing books. When I'm writing about Owen or that night in Kansas City, I went back and watched the show, at least up to his part. But I lots of stuff I just didn't remember. And so then it's like when I watched it last night, I thought I was healed. I thought these wounds are okay, we're good. There might be a little scarring, but we're going to be all right. Man, they were gaping. I didn't want to go to bed when it was over. I wanted to sit and contemplate. Nothing affected me like that. There's been other guys, Benoit suicide, murder suicide, but we weren't there, like you said. Brian Pillman's death in Minnesota, we weren't there. This situation we were right there, mere feet. And like I said on the show, I watched my monitor guy. So I'm watching the monitor, and I happened to look up and look at something, and that's when Owen came into my line of sight, and it was just like a blur. And then Lawler had seen it all, so it was just horrible, and I'm still troubled by it. A big time player hit me last night and said, "Man, I was really impressed. I couldn't remember how you did that, blah, blah, blah." And I said, it affects me every day. When tragedies happen and people are taken before their time. Owen's the greatest example that I go back to and say, well, Owen Hart was taken way before his time. So I hope people watch it, especially new fans that don't know who Owen is. They've heard of Brett, the Hitman. They've heard of Owen very casually. This was, I thought the guys did a phenomenal job on that show. And I was glad I could at least speak my mind. I had no idea what was going to be left in or out. That stuff goes.
Sure.
You interview for 5 hours and then you get 3 sentences or something. That's fine. It's their deal. But I was impressed with the whole thing and the effort they put in to talk to Martha and the kids. Excellent thought.
I'm sorry for taking up so much of your time. I just had a couple more questions, if you don't mind.
Sure. Oh.
You may have been asked this question before, but I'm just curious, after everything you've done and you still got plenty more time to create new memories, what are you most proud of as far as your wrestling career has gone?
I'm probably the most proud of the talents that my group was able to sign, giving opportunities to guys that wanted to live their dreams, signing the Hardy Boys who are 17 and 18, or bring them to TV, and they're wrestling in their homemade wrestling attire that they sewed on their mother's sewing machine, their late mother. Guys like that, seeing John Cena at Indy in LA, and I think he was doing some limo driving, furniture company stuff, and wrestling as an indie prototype. And then I get back, I take a red eye from LA back to Stanford or to LaGuardia. And I tell Vince, I go to the office, I've been on the plane all night. I said, I just found our main eventer in 5 years for WrestleMania. And he told me, he said, "You're hallucinating. Go home and take a shower." Let's go back to work. But I think guys like that, the Lesnar hire was great, Kurt. And then reaching out and giving guys that next step, like the Dudleys, who have been around a long time. They've been in ECW trying to get paid. When's the check coming? Well, this is going to happen. A little martial law there in that rebellious organization, which I was a fan of. Guys like that, Ariel, that one class we had with Brock in it, Cena in it, Batista, Randy Orton, Shelton Benjamin, Mark Henry, all there at OVW. It wasn't fancy like the Performance Center, but all we did was create stars. And some of them are still playing. Here this week, one of the major storylines there is Edge and Randy. I signed both guys, and I'm proud of the heck of it. And so you're proud of their success, you mourn their losses and their setbacks. But I think that's the biggest thing. I'll always probably be known for my voice of WrestleManias and Raw and all those things, and hopefully now AEW. But I think my greatest accomplishment to date, I'll qualify with that, is talent administration, scouting, getting the system in place, the guys we hired, giving Mick Foley, who had been a journeyman guy, out there, give him a chance to come work in his home territory when he'd already been turned down 2 or 3 times. Uh, I just really think that's the key thing. And now you see these guys are older. They got teenage children. They're playing. They're sending their kids to college. They live in a nice home. They got a life. They've got a life. And if in some small way I could help them facilitate that life, that's what I'm most proud of.
And by the way, I'm just curious. I know you weren't there at the time, but wrestling has been in the news this week in many respects. It was featured on the Last Dance docuseries on ESPN when
Yeah.
they chronicled Dennis Rodman going to Nitro and doing his whole deal with the NWO. I know you were at WWE at the time, but do you recall that? And were you surprised that they were able to pull off a deal like that to get him away from the finals to appear on Nitro?
Absolutely shocked. But it would not have happened with anybody but Dennis Rodman.
Right.
You wouldn't even probably ask anybody else because Rodman was a free spirit, all that good stuff, man. And I as a matter of fact, when I was officiating college basketball in the Oklahoma Intercollegiate Conference, NAIA schools, way back in the day, I called a couple of Rodman's games at Southeastern Oklahoma. So I officiated basketball,
Wow.
baseball and football. But I had some games that he played in, and he was pretty amazing. And he was an amazing offensive player. It wasn't no, he was he could slither around like a worm. He got a lot of rebounds. But I remember him picking up garbage points around the basket because he could rebound. But he scored a lot of points for a guy that's not known for scoring points. So that was kind of cool. It was a great get. Eric Bischoff did a hell of a job on herding the chickens in that little deal. Getting everybody there on time and getting them on TV, teasing all the egos. So they kept it simple. A couple of chair shots and whatever. But yeah, I was shocked. But boy, it was good booking. It was good. I don't know how that thing did financially, but I'm thinking probably one of their better pay-per-views. I believe you got a lot of external publicity. That's why you hire these guys. We got Mike Tyson coming to work with us on Saturday night. Somebody said, "What's he going to do?" I said, "Well, he's there to present the first TNT trophy or belt to either Cody or to Lance Archer." Now that's the official word. Mm-hmm. You're going to bring Mike Tyson, who's been hitting the heavy bag, to Jacksonville on pay-per-view on Saturday, and he's not going to get physical with somebody? Come on. Too good an opportunity. Can't miss these opportunities to be missed. So Mike will be with us on that deal. Have you seen his workout videos?
Oh my God. Blown away. Absolutely blown away. And the guy that he's working out with is a very famous MMA coach, Rafael Cordero, who I spoke to about it. And it seems like there's something there. What do you think?
There's money there.
Yeah.
If somebody could look, how easy would it be to promote Mike in a match that was 3 rounds,
right?
3 2-minute rounds, something like that. To book him at his age in a traditional, the old 10 or 12 or 15 is ridiculous. Why would you even? You're inferring it may go 10 or 12 or 15. It's not. Fatigue's going to set in, but there's a lot of guys out there. I'm sure would like a payday to step in the ring with Mike if it's done like an exhibition or a television event. I mean, real, not fiction, but real. But keep the time frames in place. I think it's a moneymaker. It's new programming, Ariel. It's new programming. It's content is king. You know that content is king. So somebody's going to probably jump on this deal, and because I think it's got pay-per-view potential or prime time potential, quite frankly. So I'm looking forward to seeing Mike. Mike's one of the great pro wrestling historians of all time. It's incredible. I don't know that he can name the presidents. Mm-hmm. I don't know how he did in American history in Brooklyn or Bronx, wherever he's from. What's the boroughs he was from? But I think Brooklyn.
Yeah.
But he can recite chapter and verse on pro wrestling history. He grew up as a child of that genre. He had a television. He didn't have great parenting, apparently. He watched TV and he liked wrestling. So I found out that when I worked with him in the Shawn Michaels, Steve Austin thing way back in the 90s. And we kept in good contact since. He loves to talk wrestling. He's entertaining, and I know that some people have complained about, well, why did you guys use Mike Tyson? Well, look, he's paid his debt to society years and years ago. He did what he had to do. He served his time. He had a sentence and he served it. So I don't know. We have to forgive a little easier than we are sometimes. I think I have no issue with Mike Tyson. I'm looking forward to it. Our talents are excited. Can you imagine somebody that's never met Mike? You got to still social distance, but there he is. Because we kind of feel for him to join us on the weekend on the pay-per-view. So it's really a lot of fun. I love Mike.
Final question for you, Jim. And again, thank you so much for the time. This has been amazing. I could keep you for 3 hours, but I know you got to go call some matches tonight. That's on TNT this evening, AEW Dynamite. And of course, as you mentioned, pay-per-view, Double or Nothing this Saturday. And I'm happy that you brought up Mike, because what a get that is for you guys. Someone who the wrestling fans know, obviously, but the boxing fans, and he's in the news. He's relevant right now. So that's just a great get on your part. I'm just curious, as we conclude, this era that you're working in right now, this company that you're working for right now, the wrestlers that you're working alongside, does this remind you of another period in your great career? Like, are you reminded of your early WCW days here? What do you compare what you're going through right now, what you're experiencing, and who you're working with right now to the early days of your career? Or is this so different and so fresh that you can't compare it to anything?
We're trying to have an athletic presentation, Ariel, where we're heavier on sports than the entertainment component.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that the Mid-South and the UWF that Cowboy Bill Watts promoted for many years, it was a big influence of Tony Khan. When Tony Khan can recite verbiage that I said on those shows, which, by the way, were before he was born, I'm impressed. He loves the philosophical aspects of writing TV. And, for a guy that's immersed with the Jaguars ownership and other, not just ownership, but he's got a job there. And then you got, and he's got the Fulham Football Club in England and AEW. And he's 35 years old. He's got a life also. It's pretty amazing. But I think he is very strongly influenced by the philosophical feel, not the look, because bodies change and ring attire changes, and there's HD now and all those good things. But I think the philosophy of it, it'd be like saying a football player or football coach, we're going to win with great defense, because if you can't score, you can't beat me. So if I can keep you in the end zone, or limit your opportunities there, so we're going to emphasize defense in the kicking game, because I want to play the field advantage. It's not all about who's playing split in or who's playing the slot back. It's a philosophy of blocking and tackling and logic. And that's what we're trying to get to right now. So I think that's kind of what it reminds me of. And it's exciting for me. It's a whole new variation. I'm produced differently. The scripts are differently. The show's written uniquely. We had a big production meeting last night on conference call. And it lasted, I think, 20 minutes. 20 minutes, maybe 30, max 30. And I've been in production meetings that lasted 3 or 4 hours for the same 2-hour show. Overthinking. And then now you can take the other side of the issue and say, wait a minute, we just care more. We want to make sure we got every I dotted, okay, bullshit. Sorry, but come on, man. Don't overthink pro wrestling. Don't overthink MMA. It's still going to be basic fundamental stuff. The politics outside the octagon are always going to be evolving, because that's the nature of the beast. But when it's time to fight, you're right back to basics. And that's what we're trying to do, get back to basics. And I think people will see that, on tonight, and then they'll see it again Saturday night to join us on our pay-per-view. I don't know. I don't think I've ever done a pay-per-view with nobody in the crowd, ever. And I did my first I was on the ground floor doing pay-per-view back in the 80s, So it's going to be a good week, buddy. It's going to be a good week. And I'm glad you reached out to me on Saturday. I thought I might see you there, but I understand obviously why not. Yeah. I don't know why I was thinking that. But my naivete.
It was a great photo seeing you there. It was really cool. And I'm glad that I reached out as well. And I'm appreciative that you responded and that you took an hour out of your day to talk to us today. It's so great talking to you and picking your brain. I don't know if I ever told you, but I attended WrestleMania 18 in Toronto, and I went to the fan access. I was all alone. My friends only showed up a couple of days later, and I only waited in two lines. I only wanted to meet two sets of people. I waited in Tori Wilson's line because I was 19 years old at the time. I mean, can you blame
Yeah.
me? You can't blame me for that one.
No, no.
And I
Good move,
waited in
buddy.
line to meet you and Jerry Lawler. And I wanted to meet you as someone who loved broadcasting, because I thought so highly of you and love everything about what you've done in your career. So to get to know you now and to talk to you like this is just a real treat. So thank you so much, Jim. And I'm so happy that you're getting this opportunity and that we can still hear you. And I hope that you get to do it for 20, 30 more years.
I'm living my best life, Ariel. I'm living my best life. I've been blessed with these opportunities. And as anybody that listens to my work this week, especially, is going to see I'm taking full advantage of it. One of the great things that I see online is that it sounds like the announcers at AEW are having fun. And we are, because we're steering our own ship out there. We're playing our own music, for better or for worse. And I find that to be extremely exciting and challenging. So it'll be good. But I appreciate your time, buddy. I'm proud of you. I told you that. I started with that. I'm going to end with that. I'm very proud of what you're building. You're building a great brand, the Ariel Helwani brand, and I know this is only going to go crazy. So I'm happy for you and your family, and stay safe and keep doing what you're doing.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN Plus.